"Get your hands off my children, you filthy woman!" Theodore Sinclair's voice exploded through the mansion like shattered crystal. He stood in the doorway of his daughter's bedroom, his designer suit still damp from rain, his face twisted with a rage that made the air itself feel dangerous. In the bed, Amara Johnson sat frozen. Two small girls curled against her sides like kittens seeking warmth. Their faces, usually etched with anxiety, were peaceful in sleep for the first time in months. "I can explain," Amara began, her voice steady despite her racing heart. The slap came fast, sharp, echoing off the walls like a gunshot. Amara's head snapped to the side, her hand flying to her burning cheek. But she didn't cry out, didn't crumble, just turned back to face him with eyes that held both pain and pity. "You're done," Theodore snarled. "Get out of my house, now." Amara rose slowly from the bed, careful not to wake 7-year-old Zara or 5-year-old Layla. She leaned down, pressed a gentle kiss to each of their foreheads, then walked past Theodore without a word, her dignity intact, even as her cheek throbbed. In the hallway, the house manager, Mrs. Rodriguez, gasped at the red mark blooming across Amara's face, but Amara just gathered her things and walked out into the Seattle rain. Theodore stood in his daughter's room, chest heaving. Then he noticed something that made his stomach drop. Silence. Not the tense, fragile quiet of exhaustion, but actual peace. Zara's face wasn't creased with her usual nightmares. Layla's tiny fists weren't clenched in anxiety. They were just sleeping. On the nightstand, a folded note caught his eye. He opened it with trembling fingers. "They begged me to stay. They said the shadows go away when I'm here. Maybe listen to them instead of your fear. AJ." 14 nannies in 8 months. Each one had failed, fled, or been fired. The twins hadn't slept through the night since their mother died in that car accident 10 months ago. They'd become selective mutes, speaking only to each other in whispers. Therapists called it complicated grief. Theodore called it his personal hell. And now he'd just fired the only person who'd gotten them to sleep peacefully. Mrs. Rodriguez appeared in the doorway. "Sir," she said quietly, "Miss Johnson is the only one they've ever asked for by name, the only one they've ever trusted." "She was in my bed," Theodore said, but the words felt hollow now. "In their mother's bed," Mrs. Rodriguez corrected gently, "because that's the only place they feel safe enough to sleep. And she stayed because they begged her not to leave them alone with their nightmares." The weight of what he'd done crashed over him like a wave. Outside, Amara sat on a bench at the bus stop, rain mixing with the tears she'd finally allowed to fall. Her phone buzzed. 3 missed calls from the agency. She knew what they'd say. Another placement ended badly. Another black mark on her record. Another family that would never know how much she'd already started to love those girls. The bus pulled up with a wheeze of brakes. She stood, then sat back down. Something held her there. Some invisible thread connecting her to 2 little girls who'd whispered their secrets to her in the dark. "My mommy's in the stars now," Zara had told her last week, the first full sentence she'd spoken to any caregiver. "But the stars are too far away and I'm scared she can't see us." "Then we'll make sure she can," Amara had whispered back. "We'll shine so bright, she'll never lose sight of you." Back at the mansion, Theodore sat on the edge of the bed watching his daughters sleep. Mrs. Rodriguez had filled in the gaps. How Amara had been the only one to get them to eat full meals, the only one who knew that Zara needed exactly 3 stories before bed, and Layla needed her special blanket folded into a perfect triangle. "Daddy!" Zara's voice was tiny, confused. She'd woken to find him there instead of Miss Amara. "Where is she?" "She had to go," Theodore said, his throat tight. Zara's face crumpled. "Did we do something bad?" "No, sweetheart." "Then why does everyone leave?" Layla was awake now too, her brown eyes filling with tears. "First Mommy, now Miss Mara." The nickname hit him like a punch. They'd given her a special name. They'd let her in, and he'd thrown her out. If you're feeling the injustice of what just happened to Amara, hit that subscribe button right now. Let's see if Theodore realizes his terrible mistake. And comment below. Where are you watching from? I want to know if you're feeling this story in Atlanta, Houston, London, or wherever you are in the world. I'll fix it, he heard himself say. I'll bring her back. Promise. Zara held out her pinky. Theodore linked his pinky with hers, then Layla's. Promise. But finding Amara proved harder than he'd expected. The agency wouldn't give out personal information. She'd left no forwarding address. It was Mrs. Rodriguez who finally remembered. Amara volunteered at a community center in Rainier Valley on weekends, teaching art to foster kids. Theodore found her there 3 days later, surrounded by children at a long table covered in paint and possibilities. She wore a smock splattered with every color imaginable, her hair wrapped in a vibrant headscarf. When she laughed at something one of the kids said, the sound was like music he'd forgotten existed. She saw him through the window, and her smile faded. But she didn't run. Just finished helping a young boy with his painting before stepping outside. "Mr. Sinclair," she said, crossing her arms. "I was wrong," he said immediately. "I reacted without thinking, without listening. I put my hands on you, and that's unforgivable. I'm sorry." "Your apology doesn't erase what happened," Amara said quietly, "or what it taught your daughters about how men can treat women." The words cut deep, because they were true. "They haven't slept since you left," he admitted. "They've barely eaten. They keep asking when Miss Mara is coming back." "And what do you tell them?" "That I made a terrible mistake, that I'm trying to fix it." Amara studied him for a long moment. "I don't care about your money, Mr. Sinclair. I care about those girls, but I won't work in a house where I'm not respected, where my word means nothing, where violence is the answer to misunderstanding." "You're right," Theodore said. "Name your terms. First, you get therapy, not for them, for you, to deal with your grief and your anger. Second, I'm not the nanny. I'm the family care coordinator. I have full authority over the girls' daily routines and emotional care. Third, we work together. No more you versus me. We're a team, or this doesn't work." Theodore nodded. "Anything else?" "Yes," Amara said. "You tell them the truth, that you made a mistake, that adults sometimes do the wrong thing, and that hitting is never okay." "Done. And one more thing," she added. "I want it in writing. All of it." That evening, Amara returned to the Sinclair mansion. The moment she walked through the door, 2 small bodies crashed into her legs. "Miss Mara, you came back," Zara sobbed into her skirt. "We thought you left forever like Mommy," Layla whispered. Amara knelt down, gathering them both into her arms. "Sometimes people have to go away," she said gently. "But not everyone who goes away is gone forever. I'm here now." Theodore watched from the stairway, seeing his daughter's joy, seeing what he'd almost destroyed. "Girls," he said, coming down, "I need to tell you something. I made a big mistake. I was scared and angry, and I told Miss Mara to leave. That was wrong." "You were mean to her?" Zara's eyes went wide. "Yes," Theodore admitted, "and I'm very sorry. I'm going to learn to do better." Over the following weeks, a new rhythm emerged. Amara implemented what she called the Healing House Rules, posted on the refrigerator in the girls' colorful handwriting. "Use words, not hands. It's okay to be sad. Everyone gets a voice. Hugs need permission. We're stronger together." Theodore started therapy, confronting not just his grief over losing his wife, but his fear of losing his daughters too. He learned that his control was really terror in disguise. Amara created mommy memory books with the girls, helping them process their loss through art and stories. She taught them that missing someone didn't mean forgetting how to smile. "Miss Mara," Layla asked one evening as Amara tucked her in, "are you going to be our new mommy?" Amara's heart squeezed. "No, sweetheart. You have a mommy who loves you from the stars. I'm here to help take care of you and make sure you remember how special you are." "Can you stay forever?" Zara asked. "I'll stay as long as you need me," Amara promised. Downstairs, Theodore overheard. He found himself hoping, "as long as you need me" might actually mean forever. 3 months later, the house had transformed. Laughter replaced silence. The girls were back in school, making friends, sleeping through the night. Theodore had learned to braid hair badly, and Amara had taught him the secret to Layla's perfect blanket triangle. One evening, as spring rain pattered against the windows, Theodore found Amara in the library, sketching in a notebook. "The girls are asleep," he said. "Actual, peaceful sleep." "They're healing," Amara replied. "Kids are resilient when they feel safe." "You saved us," Theodore said quietly. "All of us." Amara looked up. "You saved yourselves. I just held space for it to happen." "I've been thinking," Theodore said, sitting across from her, "about making this more permanent." Amara raised an eyebrow. "Permanent how?" "The girls need stability. They need to know you're not going anywhere. I want to create a foundation for kids who've lost parents, kids who need what you've given my daughters. I want you to run it." "That's a big leap from family care coordinator," Amara said carefully. "You have a gift," Theodore said. "Not just with Zara and Layla, but with all kids who are hurting. I saw you at that community center. This could be bigger. We could help more families." Amara set down her pencil. "And what happens when the girls don't need me anymore?" "I don't think that day will come," Theodore said softly, "and not just for them." The words hung between them, heavy with possibility. "Let's focus on the foundation for now," Amara said, but her smile was warm, one step at a time. 6 months later, the Sinclair Foundation for Childhood Grief opened its doors. The first location was modest, a renovated house in the same neighborhood as Amara's community center, but it was filled with light, art supplies, cozy reading nooks, and trained counselors who understood that healing happened in many ways. Amara stood at the opening ceremony, watching Zara and Layla help younger children with art projects. They'd become little ambassadors of healing, showing other kids that it was okay to miss someone and still be happy. "My mommy's in the stars," Zara told a little boy who'd just lost his father. "But Miss Mara taught us that love doesn't need a body to be real. It lives in here." She pointed to her heart. Theodore appeared beside Amara, holding 2 cups of coffee. "No nannies were harmed in the making of this foundation," he said with a wry smile. "Just one stubborn millionaire who learned to listen," Amara replied, "and one remarkable woman who refused to give up on us." They watched as Layla organized the younger kids into a circle for story time, her confidence blooming. The little girl who'd been afraid of her own shadow was now a leader. "You know," Theodore said, "the girls have been asking if you could move into the guest house. They made a PowerPoint presentation about why it's a good idea." Amara laughed. "A PowerPoint? They're 7 and 5. "Zara's very advanced," Theodore said proudly. "Slide 3 discusses proximity to their bedrooms in case of nightmares. Slide 7 covers your commute time to the foundation." "And what does their father think?" Amara asked. Theodore turned to face her fully. "Their father thinks it's the best idea they've ever had, but he also knows that some things can't be rushed, that trust, once broken, has to be rebuilt carefully." Amara nodded. "One step at a time?" "One step at a time," he agreed. "But maybe a step forward." That evening, as Amara tucked the girls into bed in their own rooms, a milestone that had taken months to achieve, Zara grabbed her hand. "Miss Mara, I'm glad Daddy made that mistake." Amara frowned. "Why, sweetheart?" "Because if he hadn't been wrong, he couldn't have made it right. And then we wouldn't have our foundation, and other kids wouldn't have help, and you wouldn't be thinking about moving into the guest house." "How do you know I'm thinking about that?" Zara grinned. "Slide 12. We covered that too." As Amara left their rooms, she found Theodore in the hallway, clearly having overheard. "Slide 12?" she asked. "Body language analysis," he said sheepishly. "Zara's idea. She's very observant." "Wonder where she gets that from," Amara said. They stood there in the soft hallway light, 2 people who'd found each other in the midst of loss and learned that sometimes the best families are the ones you build from broken pieces. "Yes," Amara said suddenly. "Yes? To the guest house, to staying, to seeing where this goes. Yes." Theodore's smile could have lit up Seattle. "The girls will be thrilled." "Just the girls?" Amara teased. "No," he said softly. "Not just the girls. 1 year later, the foundation had expanded to 3 locations. Amara had completed her certification in childhood grief counseling while continuing to lead the program. The guest house had become her home, though she spent most evenings in the main house, helping with homework, teaching the girls to cook, being part of a family that had learned to hold joy and sorrow in the same breath. On the anniversary of their mother's death, they held a celebration of life. The girls released purple balloons, their mother's favorite color, into the sky, each one carrying a message. "I told Mommy about you," Layla whispered to Amara. "I said you're not trying to be her, but you love us good too." "That's beautiful, baby," Amara said, blinking back tears. "Daddy loves you," Zara added matter-of-factly. "He looks at you like he used to look at Mommy. Happy sad?" "Happy sad? Happy you're here. Sad it took so long to find you." That night, after the girls were asleep, Theodore and Amara sat on the porch swing, watching the stars. "They're right, you know," Theodore said, "about the happy-sad thing." "I know," Amara replied. "I never thought I'd feel this way again. Didn't think I deserved to after what I did." "You made a mistake," Amara said. "You owned it. You changed. That's what matters." "You changed us," Theodore said. "Gave us back our light." "You always had it," Amara corrected. "Sometimes it just takes someone else to help you remember where the switch is." He took her hand, intertwining their fingers. "I love you. Not as the girl's caregiver, not as the foundation director, just as Amara, the woman who stayed when she had every reason to leave." "I love you too," she whispered. "All of you. This beautiful, complicated, healing family." 2 years after that terrible night, when Theodore had ordered her out, they married in a small ceremony in the backyard. Zara and Layla served as flower girls, practically glowing with joy. The foundation staff attended, along with dozens of families whose lives had been touched by their work. In her vows, Amara said, "You taught me that love isn't about perfect beginnings. It's about choosing to stay, choosing to grow, choosing to forgive. You gave me a family I didn't know I was looking for." Theodore's vows were simpler, but no less profound. "You showed me that strength isn't control, it's surrender. It's admitting when you're wrong. It's letting love in even when you're terrified of losing it again. You didn't just save my daughters. You saved me from becoming a man they'd grow up to fear instead of trust." As they exchanged rings, Layla tugged on Amara's dress. "Does this mean you're our mum now?" Amara knelt down, still in her wedding dress. "I'm your Amara, your dad's wife, your friend, your protector. And yes, if you want to call me Mum, that would be the greatest honor of my life." "Mom Amara," Zara decided, because our first mum should know we remember her too. There wasn't a dry eye in the garden. The foundation continued to grow. By their 5th year, they'd opened locations in 10 cities, trained hundreds of counselors, and helped thousands of families navigate loss. Amara's approach, treating children as whole people capable of holding complex emotions, revolutionized grief counseling for young people. But the real victory was smaller, quieter. It was Zara, now 12, mentoring younger kids at the foundation with a wisdom beyond her years. It was Layla, 10, writing and illustrating a book called When Someone You Love Becomes a Star that became required reading in grief programs nationwide. It was Theodore, who'd learned that vulnerability was strength, who spoke at conferences about his journey from control to connection, who never forgot the night he'd almost lost everything to his own fear and pride. And it was Amara, who'd built a life from a moment of staying when leaving would have been easier, who'd turned pain into purpose, creating a legacy of healing that rippled outward like stones in still water. One autumn evening, as the family sat around the dinner table, now expanded with the addition of baby Elijah, whose arrival had been celebrated with tears of joy rather than fear, Zara raised her glass of apple juice. "I want to make a toast," she announced, "to second chances, to the people who stay," Layla added. "To learning from our mistakes," Theodore contributed. Amara lifted her glass, baby Elijah babbling in her arms. "To families built from love, not just blood. To healing that honors the past while embracing the future. To Mom Amara," Zara said softly, who showed us that 14 nannies couldn't do what one person who truly sees you can do. They clinked glasses, the sound ringing through the house that had once echoed with grief and now hummed with life. Later that night, as Amara made her rounds, checking on Zara, reading under her covers with a flashlight, Layla, asleep with her mouth open, one foot hanging off the bed, and baby Elijah, peaceful in his crib, she paused at the window, the same window where Theodore had stood years ago, watching her leave in the rain. Now she stood there, inside looking out, at a life she'd never imagined but couldn't imagine living without. Theodore appeared behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" "That night," she said softly. "How different everything could have been if I'd gotten on that bus." "But you didn't." "No," she agreed. "I didn't." "Why?" he asked, though they'd had this conversation before. It was part of their story now, worn smooth with retelling. "Because somewhere deep down, I knew those girls needed me. And maybe I needed them too, needed this, a place to pour all the love I'd been saving up with nowhere to put it. And now?" She turned in his arms, smiling. "Now I need a bigger cup. There's so much love in this house, it's overflowing." "Good thing we have the foundation," Theodore said. "Plenty of kids who need what you have to give." "What we have to give," she corrected. "We're a team, remember?" "Best team I've ever been on," he agreed, kissing her forehead. From down the hall, Layla called out, "Mom, Amara, can you check for monsters? Just to be sure." Amara smiled. "Duty calls." "Want backup?" Theodore offered. "Always." Together they walked down the hall to chase away imaginary monsters, knowing that the real ones, grief, fear, pride, isolation, had already been defeated by something far more powerful than any weapon: love, patience, and the radical act of staying. The Foundation's 10th anniversary gala was held in the Seattle Art Museum, transformed for the evening into a gallery of hope. The walls displayed artwork created by children in the program, paintings of families both lost and found, sculptures representing transformation, photographs capturing moments of joy after sorrow. Amara, now recognized nationally as a leader in childhood grief counseling, stood at the podium in an elegant purple gown, a tribute to the woman whose death had ultimately brought them all together. 10 years ago, she began, I was fired from a nanny position for doing what I believed was right, comforting 2 scared little girls who just needed someone to stay. That moment of injustice became the catalyst for something beautiful. In the audience, Theodore watched with pride, their 3 children beside him. Zara, 17, and headed to college to study psychology. Layla, 15, and already a published author. Elijah, 5, and full of the confidence that comes from never knowing a world without love. "We've learned that healing isn't a destination," Amara continued. "It's a journey we take together. Every child who walks through our doors carries a story of loss, but they also carry infinite potential for joy, connection, and resilience. Our job is simply to create space for both." She introduced the evening's speakers, young adults who'd been through the program, sharing how it had changed their lives, parents who'd found hope in their darkest moments, counselors who'd discovered their calling. But the most powerful moment came when Zara took the stage. "My mother died when I was 6, she said, poised beyond her years. "For months my sister and I lived in a darkness so complete we forgot what light looked like. 14 different nannies tried to help us. They failed not because they didn't care, but because they tried to fix us instead of seeing us." She found Amara's eyes in the crowd. Then came someone different, someone who understood that grief and love could exist in the same space, who stayed when we were difficult, who held us when we were impossible, who showed us that our mother's love didn't die with her body. It lived on in how we loved each other. Her voice grew stronger. "That woman became my mom, Amara, not a replacement for my mother, but a new chapter in our family's story. She taught us that families aren't just born, they're built, one choice at a time, one day at a time, one act of staying at a time." The audience was silent, many wiping away tears. "Tonight I want to announce that I'll be joining the Foundation after college, working to expand our programs internationally. because every child deserves what my sister and I found. Someone who sees their pain and chooses to stay anyway." The applause was thunderous. Amara stood, tears streaming down her face as Zara ran to embrace her. "Did I do okay, Mama Amara?" Zara whispered. "You did perfect, baby, just perfect." Later, as the gala wound down, the family gathered on the museum's terrace looking out over the Seattle skyline. The Space Needle glowed against the night sky, a beacon of possibility. "Remember when you used to tell us Mum was in the stars?" Layla asked, leaning against Amara. "I remember." "I think she's happy," Layla said, "knowing we're okay. Knowing we found you." "I think so too," Amara agreed. Elijah, who'd been quietly playing with his toy dinosaur, looked up. "Why are you crying, Mama?" "Happy tears, baby. Sometimes love is so big, it leaks out your eyes." Theodore pulled them all closer. "What do you say we go home? I think Mrs. Rodriguez saved us some cake." "Mrs. Rodriguez retired 3 years ago, Dad," Zara laughed. "Right, I saved us some cake." As they walked to the car, Amara looked back at the museum, where their story was now part of Seattle's tapestry of triumph over tragedy. She thought about that night in the rain, sitting at a bus stop, choosing between leaving and staying. Such a small choice, such an enormous impact. "You okay?" Theodore asked, noticing her pause. "More than okay," she said. "I'm home." And she was. Not just in a place, but in a purpose. Not just with a family, but as family. The woman who'd walked into chaos with nothing but patience and love had built an empire of healing. All because she'd refused to get on a bus. All because she'd chosen to stay. If this story touched your heart like it touched mine, please subscribe to our channel. We share powerful stories like this every single week. Stories that celebrate Black excellence, resilience, and the families we choose. Hit that notification bell so you're first to see our next upload. And one more time, where are you watching from? I love seeing our global family in the comments. Until next time, remember, sometimes the best families are the ones built from broken pieces made whole by love, peace, and blessings.